To see how the lie became standard, we start at the sink. The bathroom raid. The big 5 you use daily. We begin where the day does. Shampoo, body wash, lotion, sunscreen, makeup remover. 5 products, 1 pattern, ingredients Europe restricts or discloses, and an American label that keeps you guessing. First hit, formaldehyde-releasing preservatives. You won't see formaldehyde on a bottle. You'll see DMDM hydantoin, quaternium-15, imidazolidinolurea, diazolidinolurea, bronopol. They keep water-heavy formulas microbe-free by slowly generating formaldehyde inside the container. Steaks, thin skin, steam, daily repetition. Formaldehyde is a known skin sensitizer and a bigger deal for pros and people with frequent exposure. In the EU, products that can release formaldehyde past a tiny threshold must carry a "contains formaldehyde" warning, and several donors are tightly limited. In the US, if formaldehyde isn't intentionally added, there's no special flag on the front. That's how a gentle wash can become the reason a toddler scratches at the nape after bath time. Swap logic. Pick donor-free formulas preserved with systems like sodium benzoate potassium sorbate at low pH, dihydrocetic acid, gluconolactone plus sodium benzoate, or multifunctionals like caprylyl glycol, especially in pumps and airless bottles that let milder systems work. Second, MIMCI, methylisothiazolinon and methylchloroisothiazolinon. Dermatology clinics called it an allergy epidemic for a reason. Europe banned MIMCI in leave-ons and pressed levels down in rinse-offs after patch tests lit up across the continent. Here, you can still find MI in US wipes, lotions, hand soaps, and shampoos. Stakes are simple: contact time and frequency. Eyelids, lips, hands, diaper area, thin skin gets hit hardest. A sensitive baby wipe with MI turns into a midnight rash you swear must be the diaper. It is. The fix is boring and effective. Water-based, fragrance-free wipes without MIMCI, liquid soaps and shampoos that avoid them, ventilation and gloves for long, wet work. Third, parabens, nuance matters. Europe draws lines between long-chain parabens like propyl and isobutyl and short-chain ones like methyl and ethyl. US labels often turn paraben-free into theater, replacing them with stronger sensitizers or formaldehyde donors. The stakes are about location and duration. A propyl paraben in a body lotion that sits under clothes for 12 hours isn't the same as a quick rinse-off cleanser. Practical rule: ditch long-chain parabens in leave-ons that cover lots of skin, body lotion, eye cream, diaper care, lip balm. If you tolerate short-chain parabens, they can be acceptable in certain contexts, especially when the alternatives burn. Packaging helps you win: pumps and airless over wide-mouth jars. Fourth, PFAS, the forever chemicals hiding where performance sells. Long wear foundation, waterproof mascara, featherweight primers, even dental floss. In Europe, regulators are pushing broad PFAS restrictions. In the US, change arrives state by state and retailer by retailer. What nobody tells you is how to spot them on a label: PTFE, perfluoro, polyfluoro, anything. Makeup artists found the workaround years ago: tubing mascaras that form polymer sleeves and slide off with warm water. Non-fluorinated film formers from acrylates, silicones, or starch blends. Blotting plus powder instead of a fluorinated shell on skin. For floss, silk, nylon, or UHMWPE tapes move without PTFE. Fifth, fragrance, the black box. One word can legally stand in for dozens of chemicals, including solvents, fixatives, and known fragrance allergens. In the EU, common allergens must be listed by name above tiny thresholds: limonene, linalool, citral, and new rules are expanding the list. In the US, you get fragrance or parfum and a guessing game. Stakes show up where fabric meets face. A laundry-scented pillowcase can puff eyelids even when your skincare is clean. Microcapsules in hair and body products rupture all day, turning fresh into a continuous air source. If your house smells like detergent in the hallway, you're breathing it. Fast wins. Make your core routine fragrance-free: lotion, face cream, hand soap, body wash, and skip softeners and dryer sheets. If you want scent, pick one product you love, confirm phthalate-free fragrance and allergen disclosure, use it for a moment, then stop. Scent should be an event, not a room tone. 2 micro-stories landed. A college student cycles eye creams for months, chasing a mystery eyelid rash. The trigger isn't the cream. It's her shampoo, DMDM hydantoin in the lather that runs over her eyes every morning. She switches to a donor-free base and keeps rinse behind the ears. The flare quiets. Across town, a new parent buys free and clear everything and still fights a diaper rash. The wipe hides MI at the tail end. a water-based, fragrance-free, MI-free wipe, and a simple zinc paste end the problem in 48 hours. Meanwhile, packaging plays its part. Airless pumps let milder preservation work. Jars invite fingers, water, and stronger systems. Heat moves chemicals. A hot car turns a balm in soft plastic into a slow leach. Glass for oils, pumps over jars, no microwaving plastics, boring rules that cut exposure without changing brand. Here's the fast read you can do in a store aisle. Scan the last third of the list for DMDM hydantoin, quaternium 15, imidazolidinol/diazolidinol urea, bronopol, and for methylisothiazolinon/methylchloroisothiazolinon. For makeup and floss, flag PTFE and perfluoro/polyfluoro. If it says fragrance, assume a mix. Unscented can still hide a masking fragrance. Fragrance-free is the safer bet. Stakes, action, impact. Stakes, thin skin, kids, daily contact, and indoor air. Action, 5 products, 5 quiet exposures. Impact, when you swap the core, the room gets quiet. Fewer rashes, fewer headaches, fewer mysteries you blame on the weather. And that's before we even open the legal playbook that let 2 versions of the same brand exist on opposite sides of an ocean. The regulatory gap. How safe until proven harmful? 1. To understand why your label reads like poetry instead of a map, we have to talk about the rule that quietly wrote your bathroom. In the United States, cosmetics move to shelves without pre-market approval. Companies are expected to ensure safety, but there's no routine government greenlight before you buy. Regulators step in after complaints, recalls, or clear violations. That posture, safe until proven harmful, wasn't a headline. It was a default that turned homes into test sites. Meanwhile, Europe built a different reflex. When credible risk signals appear, endocrine disruption, persistence in the environment, strong sensitization, EU regulators restrict or ban entire classes for consumer products while they gather more data. It's not fear, it's sequence. Reduce exposure first, then refine the rule. That's how allergens get listed by name, how certain preservatives get capped hard, and why a brand's European ingredient panel often tells you more. Here's where it gets practical. Labels list intentional ingredients, not process contaminants. If a surfactant is made by ethoxylation, tiny amounts of 1,4-dioxane can ride along unless suppliers strip it out. You won't see it named because it wasn't added on purpose. Aerosol propellants can bring benzene when supply chains slip. Nitrosamines can form when the wrong amines meet trace impurities. Your label declares intent, not everything you'll meet in the bottle or the air. With that blind spot, retailers started acting like regulators. When a national chain forbids PFAS in house brand cosmetics, suppliers reformulate or lose the shelf. When a state caps 1,4-dioxane in shampoos and cleaners, manufacturers vacuum strip surfactants and publish new specs. The fix travels far beyond the state line because 1 cleaned-up base is cheaper than 2. Industry leans on use as directed as a shield. On paper, it's fair. In real life, exposure stacks. A rinse-off with MI isn't a crisis until it meets a sensitive hand soap preserved the same way, plus wipes at the changing table, plus a bucket cleaner in a steamy bathroom. You're not misusing products, you're living with them. The law slices by category. Your body experiences the sum. The gap becomes obvious when a brand sells 2 recipes under 1 logo. The EU version reformulates to comply with allergen disclosure, tighter preservative limits, and emerging PFAS policies. The US version keeps a legacy base if it's still legal. The bottle looks identical. The ingredient order doesn't. Trust erodes quietly when performance feels the same, but the trade-offs differ by border. Through 3 real-world moments, a state quietly passes a 1,4-dioxane limit for household products. Within months, a familiar dish soap adds purity refined to the label. That signal tells your process changed upstream, catalysts, temperatures, vacuum stripping. Same scent, lower ghost. Across the ocean, EU rules force disclosure of certain fragrance allergens on cosmetics. A lotion lists limonene and linalool online abroad. The US page keeps fragrance as a single line. The company can disclose when required. It doesn't hear unless you ask. In a newsroom makeup room, a station adopts a FAS-free spec for on-air kits after retailer policies shift. The resulting long-wear base uses non-fluorinated film formers and better powdering. Viewers can't tell. Removal gets easier. That's regulation by procurement, not by press release. Process contaminants versus intentional ingredients is a quiet fault line. Consumers can avoid DMDM hydantoin because it's printed. They can't avoid 1,4-dioxane unless the brand or the law caps it. The EU leans on process control and group restrictions to shrink that unseen load. The US increasingly relies on state action, retailer standards, and after-the-fact enforcement when a recall reveals a spike. There's also the timing problem. Setup time shouldn't eat your routine, yet it does when safety pulls from disclaimers instead of design. Good packaging reduces how much preservation you need. Airless pumps let milder systems work. Jars demand stronger chemistry because fingers introduce water and microbes. Europe pushes these boring engineering choices through guidance and eco-labels. Here, they're marketing upgrades unless a buyer writes them into a spec. None of this turns companies into villains. It turns incentives into outcomes. If the rules allow an older fragrance base here and require an allergen-disclosed one there, finance will pick regional optimization until someone forces harmonization. When harmonization happens, because a state law sets a numeric ceiling or a big retailer demands parity, the global base shifts and you feel it as calmer skin and quieter air. So what does closing the gap look like at home? Ask brands how they control 1,4-dioxane in ethoxylated inputs. Ask whether they use intentionally added PFAS in long wear lines. Ask for the preservative system by name. If they sell abroad, ask why EU allergen disclosure isn't mirrored on US pages. Then vote with receipts for companies that answer with methods and numbers, not adjective. That's how safe until proven harmful becomes built safe by design. Not because a slogan promised it, but because the process changed before your kids' eyelashes, your eyelids, and your air had to keep proving the point. 2 bottles, 1 brand. Split formula economics. While that was happening in Brussels, something else was happening on your shelf. 2 bottles, 1 brand, same color, same scent story, different guts. You don't see the split in the logo. You see it in the INCI line. A donor here, a different preservative there, a PFAS film former trimmed abroad but left in place at home if it's still legal. The economics aren't mysterious. They're spreadsheet simple. To understand why, we need to go back to the moment regulations diverge. The EU sets a bar, ban a class, cap an allergen, force disclosure, and manufacturers rebuild the base to pass. At that fork, finance faces 2 choices. Build one global clean base that satisfies the stricter region and ship it everywhere, or run parallel recipes, a compliant set for Europe and a legacy set where it's still allowed. On paper, regional optimization looks efficient. In practice, it erodes trust one quiet swap at a time. Consider Shampoo. A household name sells a US bottle preserved with a formaldehyde donor and MI in the hand soap next to it. The EU counterpart dropped donors to avoid contains formaldehyde labeling and reformulated rinse-offs to hit tightened MI thresholds. Same scent, same claims, gentle, smoothing, but different preservative systems under the hood. The consumer experience barely shifts, the exposure does. Mascara tells the same story at the lash line. A waterproof US tube lists PTFE or perfluoric terms midway down. The EU version leans on tubing technology with non-fluorinated polymers or acrylates set with powder. Removal is easier, red eyes calm down, and no one on camera notices. Cost-wise, keeping the fluorinated US formula looks cheaper until a retailer standard or state law forces a pivot anyway. Then the brand harmonizes, because juggling inventories is expensive. Lotions and lip products create a subtler split. In Europe, allergen disclosure means that a fragrance-heavy body cream lists limonene and linalool. Here, fragrance stays opaque, and the same bottle carries a dermatologist-tested badge. If a customer emails the EU subsidiary, they get an allergen list. The US site links to a palette of possible components without confirming the exact blend. The company can disclose. They often choose not to until compelled. Why not just go global clean from the start? Because the first unit of reformulation is the most expensive. R&D hours, stability testing, microbial challenge tests, packaging tweaks, compatibility with pumps or tubes, and fresh safety substantiation under different climates. Multiply that by hundreds of SKUs across hair, face, and body, and finance says, let's phase it. So they do by geography. Now the deeper math, line simplicity versus margin. 2 parallel formulas add complexity. You need separate ingredient buys, separate quality specs, distinct labels, region-coded artwork, and parallel regulatory files. The savings come from deferring the expensive swap in markets without pressure. As soon as pressure arrives, state caps on 14-dioxane, retailer PFAS bans, or fragrance allergen rules, the calculus flips. One cleaned-up global base is cheaper than maintaining 2. Visual identity makes this easy to hide. Bottles, fonts, colorways, and fragrance cues stay identical, while the ingredient deck diverges by 10 characters. Meetings can keep celebrating brand continuity while compliance flips ingredients behind the curtain. Consumers feel sameness. Their skin registers nuance. Here's how you can read a split in the wild. Check the US site and the EU site for the same product name. If the EU page lists allergens or uses different preservative language, you've found a divergence. Compare longwear claims. If the US lists PTFE or perfluoro/polyfluoro and the EU doesn't, that's a performance material swapped for compliance. Scan for donor names, MI/MCI, or long-chain parabens, propyl, isobutyl in US leave-on. If the brand boasts paraben-free in America but leans on MI in the fine print, then shows short-chain parabens in a European INCI with allergen disclosure, you're seeing two different solutions to the same preservation problem. Retailers quietly push these convergences. When a national chain bans intentionally added PFAS in house brand cosmetics, suppliers refactor. When a broadcaster's procurement spec requires PFAS-free on-air kits, vendors present harmonized alternatives. When a state's dioxane limit goes live, vacuum strip surfactants roll into the national plan because two detergent trains cost more than one. There's a human story inside the spreadsheet. A parent traveling buys the same baby lotion abroad. Their child's rash eases. Back home, the US bottle triggers the flare again. They didn't switch brands, the brand switched on them. A makeup artist rebuilds her kit around tubing mascaras and non-fluorinated film formers because overseas gigs demanded it, then never goes back. Clients stop complaining about removal. An eczema patient uses a European version of a sensitive cream and discovers the allergens listed. They avoid the exact note that used to swell their eyelids. The question isn't whether companies are bad actors. It's whether your trust can survive a quiet ingredient fork that only disappears when a law or a buyer pushes parity. If you want to accelerate harmonization, ask for the EU's transparency here. Publish fragrance allergens globally, state preservative systems by name, confirm dioxane controls, and commit to no intentionally added PFAS across makeup and dental items. When enough receipts demand one recipe, the logo stops meaning two different things depending on the airport. Thin skin, high stakes. Babies, teens, and eyes. Now we make it personal. Contact time, surface area, and the thinnest skin in the house. The rules change when a formula sits instead of rinses, when heat and occlusion push ingredients deeper, and when eyelids and lips don't have much barrier to bargain with. Start with babies. Their skin is thinner, their surface area to body weight is higher, and the diaper area is warm, moist, and covered. That's perfect for soothing balms, and perfect for exposure to preservatives and fragrance if you pick the wrong jar. Europe banned MI/MCI and leave-ons because contact allergy exploded. The diaper aisle felt it first. Here, you'll still find sensitive, wipes with MI sitting at the tail end, and lotions that smell cozy because the fragrance never has to list allergen. One night routine tells the story. A parent warms a wipe, pats a zinc cream, snaps the diaper, and tucks a baby into freshly scented pajamas. The rash that wakes them at 2 a.m. didn't come from the diaper brand. It came from contact time, wipe residue plus fragrance on fabric pressed against thin skin for hours. The fix feels plain, water-based, fragrance-free, MI-free wipes, a simple zinc paste in a tube, fragrance-free laundry, and pumps over jars so milder preservation holds up. 48 hours later, cheeks calm and the nursery smells like nothing. That silence is the win. Teens live at the other edge. Long wear makeup, lip stains, body mists, and hours under fluorescent lights. Performance cells and PFAS hide behind it, perfluoro and polyfluoro film formers that make foundation transfer-proof and lipstick bulletproof. The label won't say forever, but PTFE does. Eyes pay first. Waterproof mascaras stick so well that removal demands oil baths and rubbing. The lash line gets raw, the sclera flares, and the cycle repeats because the wear looks unbeatable. There's a smarter trade. Tubing mascaras form polymer sleeves and slide off with warm water. Long-wear bases can lean on non-fluorinated film formers, acrylates, silicones, starches, and stay in place if you set and blot. Powder and a tissue beat a fluorinated shell. Lips tell their own truth. Simple bases, fewer dyes, and short lists reduce the sting, and a clear balm under matte stains cuts friction without a plastic jacket. Meanwhile, body mists map a room more than a person. If a school locker area smells like a department store, everyone's lungs are sharing one bottle. One rule helps: scent as a moment, not a fog. Spray on a scarf outside, not in a hall. Eyes and lips are thin, vascular, and unforgiving. Eyelids react faster than cheeks. Lash serums and brow tints ride close to the line, and oxidative dyes do real work with real allergen potential. Patch tests matter, not as theater, but as insurance, behind the ear 48 hours before anything that stays near eyes. For removers, skip fragranced oils and dual-phase shakes that red like perfume. Fragrance-free micellar in a pump with cotton or a clean cloth reduces variables. Technique matters as much as chemistry. Rinse hair back, not forward, so shampoo doesn't waterfall onto lids. Keep lather behind the ears. For raccoon-proof days, tubing formulas and a lukewarm washcloth beat scrubbing. Micro-stories make it stick. A preschool teacher kept reapplying hypoallergenic hand cream between diaper changes. Her knuckles burned and her eyelids puffed by lunchtime. The culprit wasn't chalk dust. It was fragrance on fabric and MI in the soap by the sink. Facilities swapped to fragrance-free, MI-free liquid soap and fragrance-free laundry for nap mats. Her hands healed. A high school dancer wore a PFAS-heavy foundation for competitions and cleansed 3 times a night. Breakouts and stinging wouldn't quit. The kit lead rebuilt her base. Non-fluorinated longwear, set and blot, tubing mascara, fragrance-free remover, and a brimmed cap during outdoor rehearsals. Skin steadied, makeup still red under lights, and removal stopped feeling like a punishment. Packaging is part of the risk profile. Airless pumps for baby lotion keep fingers out so gentler systems work. Jars by the changing table invite wet hands and stronger preservatives. Travel sizes live in hot cars. Soft plastics see heat and oil and let go more. Glass for oils and balms, capped and cool, keeps formulas closer to what the lab tested. In backpacks, a tinted mineral stick for faces lives better than a spray that fogs a bathroom mirror and lungs. The simple playbook you can keep. For babies, fragrance-free everything that touches lots of skin, detergent, wipes, lotion, and donor MI-free preservation in pumps. For teens, long wear without forever chemicals. Scan for PTFE and perfluoroterms. Choose tubing mascaras, set and blot, and keep removers fragrance-free. For eyes and lips, patch test dyes. Avoid oxidative chemistry near eyes unless professionally applied with ventilation and respect for timing. And keep formulas short. One more habit beats most marketing. If a product lives on thin skin for hours, its ingredient list matters more than any front label. If the room smells like the routine, you're breathing it. Quiet air is a result, not a compromise. Fragrance is a black box. Now the one word that hides the most, fragrance. On a US label, fragrance or parfum can legally stand in for dozens of chemicals, solvents to dissolve the scent, stabilizers to keep it shelf-stable, fixatives to make it cling to skin and fabric, and musks that linger in dust. You aren't told which ones. In Europe, common fragrance allergens must be listed by name above tiny thresholds. Limonene, linalool, citral, and new rules expand that list further. Different shelves, same brand, different map. Here, what no front panel admits. Unscented can still rely on a masking fragrance to cancel base odors. That means a lotion that smells like nothing can still deliver a blend your skin argues with, while the word fragrance-free is the rarer signal that the blend isn't there at all. In everyday life, that gap shows up where fabric meets face. A pillowcase washed in a scented detergent announces itself the moment your head hits the cotton. 8 hours later, eyelids puff and you blame an eye cream you never changed. The culprit was the sheet. Fixatives are the long game. Historically, fragrance houses used phthalates like DEP to lock scent to fibers, and some blends still rely on fixatives with similar persistence goals. That persistence is why laundry feels fresh for days. It's also why nursery rooms red like diffusers hours after the dryer stops. Microcapsules add a second trick, tiny scent beads embedded in formulas that rupture with friction and heat. Walk, sit, hug, the capsule pops and the room blooms again. Fresh becomes a slow release. Musks are the base note most people can't name. Polycyclic musks like galaxolide are built to last, which is why they turn up in indoor dust and in water downstream. European regulators tighten the leash on certain musks and keep reassessing them. In the US, they can live behind fragrance. If closets and towels echo the same background note week after week, you're meeting persistence up close. What nobody tells you about the air. Terpenes like limonene and alpha-pinene smell like lemons and pine. Indoors, they can react with ozone to form secondary pollutants, including ultrafine particles and small amounts of formaldehyde. Spray a citrus air refresher in a small bathroom with weak ventilation, and you've built a tiny smog factory while you fold towels. The label calls it odor elimination. Your lungs call it load. Quick field guide helps. If a product claims unscented, check the ingredient list for fragrance or masking fragrance. If it's there, it's scented for your immune system even if your nose can't tell. If a brand says phthalate-free fragrance, ask for proof, supplier attestation, or policy, not poetry. If a company sells in the EU, look for the allergen list abroad and demand parity here. Specificity is the foundation of trust. Micro-stories land the point. A copywriter wakes with puffy eyelids every Thursday. She swaps eye creams and blames pollen. The fix wasn't skincare, it was laundry. Rewash sheets and towels in a true fragrance-free detergent, skip softeners and dryer sheets and air the room. By week 2, the swelling stops. Across town, a rideshare driver clips a vent freshener and parks in the sun. Heat turns the cabin into a scent chamber. Headaches arrive by shift, not by weather. He removes the clip, cracks windows between trips, and keeps the car neutral. Ratings stay high. Headaches stop keeping score. Here, how the split shows up in the same brand's 2 websites. The EU page lists limonene and linalool under allergens and points to a restricted substance list. The US page says fragrance and posts a broad palette of possible components without confirming what's in your bottle today. That palette looks transparent. It tells you nothing about your exact product. When you email, the European support team sends the allergen list. Here, you get adjectives. The company can disclose. It chooses where. Laundry and hair care are the scent pipelines most homes miss. A detergent scented with capsules carries fragrance into every room via fabric. A hair mist or fragranced hairspray move sent from bathroom to pillowcase. If you want to cut load fast, start there. True fragrance-free detergent, no softeners or dryer sheets, wool balls if you need them, and a window cracked during drying. In the shower, make body wash and hand soap fragrance-free by default. That single cart choice moves more chemistry out of your air than any candle swap ever will. If you still want scent, make it a moment, not a background. Pick one product you love from a brand that discloses allergens and confirms phthalate-free fragrance. Use it for an event, then stop. Scent should be a scene, not a room tone. Your nose will reset within 2 weeks. Your headaches often will too.